really good turnout. We had some great speakers. We had great panels. I think we were right in the sweet spot of what the key issues for consumers at this moment in time were. So yeah, it was a great discussion, great panel.
Awesome. All right. What's up, everybody? Corey Singletary here with the Citizens Utility Board of Wisconsin. I'm here with my usual lovely co-host, Tom Content, and
still lovely.
Still lovely. We just wrapped up the NASUCA mid-year annual meeting, the National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates. I messed that up earlier today.
It's a mouthful.
It is a long acronym, and we have with us David Springe, the Executive Director of NASUCA. And we thought, we kind of wrapped up the public session of the meeting today, this afternoon, about 30 minutes ago. And as you were just talking, there were a lot of good topics that we hit the last several days, and wanted to maybe get your impression of, looking out over the utility regulatory space from the consumer advocate's perspective and reflecting back on some of the things we heard the last few days. What really stands out to you as sort of the biggest sort of pressing challenges for consumer advocates?
I think I think we're at a moment of real uncertainty in a lot of areas. A lot of the country is really trying to move forward with emissions reduction programs, greening of the grid, transmission upgrades, a lot of things, but we're also facing a lot of inflation. Natural gas cost prices are high. That's going to translate into high electric prices. We had the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator in to visit with us because there's been newspaper reports that the lights may go out in the middle of the country if we have extreme weather. We had the PJM Interconnect, which operates in, I think, 13 states across the grid that were issuing the same reports and talking about reliability challenges with more extreme weather as we change our generation mix. And it was all pretty rational conversation until suddenly we had 8% inflation and $9 gas. And so it's a really different conversation. So I think there's just a lot of uncertainty. I mean, obviously everybody wants, safe, reliable, affordable, and clean, if possible, service. And some of those issues are starting to kind of bang head on into each other. So it was sort of fascinating to kind of get an update and see where we're at and see what the future might look like and what some of the possible paths to solve some of those issues, or at least put a dent in them in a sense. So yeah, it's an interesting moment in time for industry in general, electric, gas, water, and for, I think, the challenges ahead of us consumer advocates.
Yeah, a lot of transmission issues yesterday, and then a lot of focus on affordability and low income today with the energy burden. That was pretty compelling panel as well.
Yeah, it was really yesterday we had a kind of a great series of progression. We started the day with talking about sort of the future of natural gas. I mean, natural gas is probably going to be a necessary component of our system for at least a while, but how can we lower the carbon intensity or the carbon impact of that gas while still maintaining reliability? And then, we rolled into the PJM MISO panel around system reliability because they run the electric grids. We then rolled into a panel on transmission upgrades. How do we upgrade our system in a way that allows us to access more renewable energy, build additional reliance or resilience into the system, and do it in a way that doesn't sort of break the pocketbooks. Right. And then we rolled up beyond that into electric vehicles and really sort of that light duty commercial fleet pickup truck. So, the plumbing shop or whoever, and what it's going to take at the distribution level to keep the system operating. So there was sort of a series building one after the other yesterday around issues that are going to impact sort of the system and how we build it and how we keep it operating and how we get it to address the challenges ahead of us. And then, yes, we switched gears today and said, all right, well, wait a minute. We all know that across this country, especially coming out of COVID, but I think COVID just magnified an existing level of economic problems that were there, anxiety, people that are struggling to keep the lights on and there's a lot of arrearages on the system. So obviously we want people to have service. We want them to have it affordably. But the conversation that we're talking about, especially all of day one, was a lot of money being put into the system. So again, you're sort of
pressures abound.
Cross pressures are sort of butting into each other. The fascinating thing I thought about today's panel, and one of the reasons I focused on it today, it's not enough to just talk about low-income customers and keeping affordable service. There's a whole conversation that was built in today's conversation around data and identifying who these customers are, where these customers are, and how we can work with the utilities to best get these customers into the programs and relief that is available. There's a lot of actual money and relief out there that customers don't take advantage of. And historically, utilities haven't been particularly proactive about trying to identify these customers. So we had Jess Kane from Eversource, and they are really digging deep into their own data, publicly available data, some industry data, and then using that to identify customers and then working internally with their local government entities to try and, as a group across all of the agencies, identify the customers that we know are there and at risk. A lot of these low-income customers are customers that are at risk or in need. They struggle with the type of paperwork that you need to qualify for programs or having internet access to even know the programs exist. So you really have to kind of be smart in identifying and proactively reaching out to them. So that was a fascinating panel. And then we added a layer on top of that to talk about equity and social justice, because it's not only that there are low-income customers, we all know that, but if you actually look at the data, and we have the Indiana Social Justice Lab come up, our Energy Justice
Environmental
Lab,
Justice,
Environment, out of University of Indiana, David Kiniski, and he really said, well, here the data actually shows that there's a disparate impact. So there's people of color tend to have higher bills, more shutoffs, I wouldn't say targeted, but they seem to, the impact seems to land more on households of color. And so it's an issue that we can't sweep away by just saying low income, right? There's more going on that we need to try and identify so that, again, we are getting the resources that we have available to help customers to the right places. So let's identify them. So it was really sort of, for 2 days, if you think, conceptually, one day was sort of like, here's all the systemic kind of technology challenges on the system. And then the second day was very focused on, here's the people challenges. And how do we, again, meld those two together? So great conference.
You mentioned it earlier about all these topics being very sort of timely. And one, I do want to give you kudos, because there were a lot of things, for example, on the affordability piece where, Tom and I have been in the room and a lot of conversations about affordability and energy burden. And usually it's just sort of, hey, look at all these folks, to your point, that we kind of knew, right? We're experiencing challenges, populations that are historically disadvantaged and whatnot, but not a lot of actionables. But there were a lot of really good examples of actual programs that were being implemented to help folks. But it also struck me in terms of sort of the timeliness of some of the infrastructure investment challenges you're talking about in terms of cost pressures, because while we were sitting in the room today in Wisconsin, our largest utility had about 45,000 customers go out because of storms overnight, and 250 around Madison. So they were trying to do storm restoration in the middle of a heat wave.
Yeah.
So a lot of these sort of grid resilience and hardening things that we're talking about that are cost pressures, but also looking at issues like social justice, even beyond the utility space in terms of, cooling spaces when you do have these issues. And I felt that, the topics and the conversations that we had over the last 2 days were quite good. And I know that we're going to take, Tom and I are going to take some of these back and fold them into the conversations we're having with our utilities. So that was something that struck me. It was very sort of actionable, going forward.
Yeah. We work really hard. We work really hard on trying to really identify what issue we're trying to target in terms of putting a panel together and putting a conference together for our members. And it's a very diverse country. Not every member has sort of the same set of issues or the same set of policies that they work under. So, I think very hard about how to sort of condense down what some of the core issues are, and then finding speakers that can really come up with actionable, not just somebody that's going to come talk, but to give you good examples, to give, I'm very focused on making sure that when my members, you guys, walk out of our conference, you have things to take home with you. You have ideas, you have contacts, you have examples, you have links. We also did 3 hours of grid training today that's sponsored by the Department of Energy and Lawrence Berkeley National Labs around performance-based rates and different rate options and different state programs. And all of those are just full of examples and papers and things that our advocates can actually take home and do something with.
No, that's really impressive because, for an organization that represents, retail choice states and vertically integrated states, to get takeaways for everybody is good. And takeaway for us, one of the takeaways for us included the discussion of PBR, because that's actively being discussed in Wisconsin right now.
Yeah, PBR is a tough one. It's kind of one of those things that's been around for a while. I think the comment that I made is our membership always wants to have a panel on PBR, but PBR is like going to Baskin Robbins, right? There's 32 flavors, so I don't know which flavor we want to talk about today.
The one that works.
The one that works. Yeah, everybody wants the answer to the one that works. I've been doing this for about 30 years. I started as a state level advocate or a consumer advocate office, like your own, in Kansas. I was the Kansas advocate for 14 years. Was in the office for 17 years, and actually worked at the Kansas PUC before that. So I've been floating around this for quite a while. So some of these issues aren't new. None of these things are new. But again, we're faced with, I think, a more unique set of challenges right now that people are looking for ways to be able to move forward or make the regulatory system, for better or worse, is not necessarily fast or efficient or clunky. Some of us, consumer advocates, call that due process protection. So we don't want it fast and unclunky because these are people's rights and people's money, and we're paid to protect them. But on the other hand, there are some rather unique challenges, and the way we've regulated utilities for 100 years certainly can be improved. Maybe there are things that we can do that if we can get together and have the dialogues with the utilities and the regulators about what our real priorities are and what good strategies to get there were. If you can identify those, then maybe you can come up with some ways to get there that don't necessarily follow the old model, but still provide enough protections for consumers, but give the utility sort of the runway to achieve the things that we want, like resilience, better resilience, or build the capability in the system to deal with something like electric vehicles. The system wasn't built to handle a bunch of people or businesses charging electric vehicles, or it wasn't really built for the system to have whole laterals full of people with solar panels on their houses, or it's like we've got to rethink the system, and the utilities are challenged to do that. Or we haven't even touched water utilities. I mean, our water infrastructure is old, right? I mean, everybody's got to have water, and some of it's not regulated by us. It depends on the state, but our infrastructure, much like our technology, our phones, our computers, you need to sort of refresh it, renew it, and make it work for the situation today. And that involves a different set of resources, involves a different set of policies around emissions and social justice. It involves a different set of technologies around wind and solar and renewables. It involves a different set of sort of climatic issues. I mean, it's been it's kind of hard to say that the climate isn't changing, or at least that we need to build additional resilience into the system with, storms and flooding and wildfires and tornadoes,
record heat while we're in the meeting.
Yeah, record heat in Indianapolis. Thank you, Indianapolis, for bringing us a decades-long record that we broke while we were here. But somebody said it was snowing in Texas or somewhere somewhere really odd. It was snowing, so it's just. The weather is, I think, more extreme. It's hitting more people.
Right.
Our system needs to be able to handle it. Obviously, Winter Storm Uri
Our
hit
customers
Texas.
felt that in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean,
it hit Texas hard, but the pricing impact.
Yeah, the gas pricing
all the way up.
Yeah, the lights went out in Texas, but the gas prices in the entire center of the country, we spent $14 or $15 billion in 3 days on gas for heat, even though the lights didn't go out. The system is now interconnected. Everything is interrelated. The gas system, you can't run the electric system without it. You can't run the gas system without the electric. You can't run your water without both. It's like everything is interconnected. And so, I think we have to think about how we keep the system stable. A lot of people died in Texas during Uri. This is life and death sort of issues. Heat waves. Last year they had 115 degrees in Seattle or Portland, Oregon, and Seattle. Right. I mean, it's the craziest thing. And a lot of people up there don't have air conditioners because they've never needed them. So that's a health issue. That's a life and death sort of issue. So, we have some really unique challenges to work through. And so I think for us consumers or advocates, our membership are trying in different ways all over the country to come to grips with all of these different and unique challenges. It's a tough puzzle to, unwind.
You mentioned all the challenges, but you also mentioned the need for new resources. And one of the things that I'm really hopeful for and looking forward to is something that you've been trying to shepherd is, the NASUCA community kind of working more together collaboratively, whether it's putting on training for members, putting together resources like the paper that came out a little while ago in collaboration with the national labs. And I think, for example, on PBR, I think it's going to take input from a bunch of different states to really kind of figure out all the technical issues to help people through that. And I think that's a good resource for all the consumer advocates, the things that we've been doing collectively. Maybe we can pull that together.
Yeah, it's running an association like this. I mean, most of our advocate offices across the country. So NASUCA has 59 members. We operate in 44 states. The majority of our members are the statutory advocates, like Wisconsin CUB. We have some nonprofits that are not statutory but are recognized advocates. And then we have some affiliate members like AARP and National Consumer Law Center that do utilities and do other things. But on balance, if you look at our member profile, the majority of our offices are like 7 people or less. Like we have a few offices that are bigger, but the average is 7 or 8 people. We are, on our best days, resource constrained to go up against billion-dollar utilities day after day after day. The level of cases, even in the 30 years that I've been in here, just the number and complexity of the issues that we have to deal with is just orders of magnitude different and hard. We are under-resourced, and so it's sometimes hard for me to ask my office. NASUCA is better together than apart, but everybody is so resource constrained, and we're struggling with workforce issues like every other sector of the economy. We've had a lot of retirements. We've had a lot of office head changes. We've had a lot of people that in this economy have been able to go get different jobs. We are, for the most part, public servants. We're not the best paid, jobs out there. Yep. You got to love this job
CUB has a position open right now.
Yeah. Like most of our offices have positions open. Yeah. It's hard to find people that want to come in and do this job. It is public service, and you've got to have sort of this thing inside of you that really makes you want to do it. And it's again, 30 years. It's a hugely gratifying sort of thing. I mean, I've lost a lot of fights in my day, but I've never gone to bed frustrated that I didn't get to try and do the right thing, right? So you really have impacts on people's lives. So it's important, but challenging. So I spent my time trying to figure out how to leverage anything I can get my hands on up into a resource for our members, whether it's papers or bootstrapping into other meetings or working with coalitions with a lot of other customers. A couple of our panels today were actually basically coalitions that we work with that are the other large commercial and industrial customers. We're all customers. We all may not represent those customers, but we're all customers. And so the things that we can partner with and build coalitions when we go talk to Congress, or we go talk to FERC, or we go talk to, other organizations, when you're holding hands with the Googles and the Amazons and the GMs and the Exxon Mobils and the big customers that are out there, because they are at some level electricity customers. We're all trying to get the same thing. So we try and leverage up with that. We've been very fortunate that the Department of Energy has been working with us for years, providing training. So some of the grid training that we had at the meeting on performance-based rates and other was DOE sponsored and provided by Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. We've been able to leverage that up for our members, and we're now leveraging our internal expertise to put together a sort of regulatory basics set of webinars for new members or new hires or new staff can come in, and we'll at least provide a base set of webinars, training webinars on our website to get people oriented around what it is we do, because it's a very technical, it's not the easiest thing to get your hands around. It takes a while. We work really hard.
And it's a good chance to plug the NASUCA.org has great resources.
Yeah, NASUCA.org
for the consumer advocates and for folks who are interested in these issues.
Yeah, like right on NASUCA.org, right on the front member, there's a button for the members. So regardless of where you're at, you push that button and see who your advocate is in your state. Again, there's 44 states. There's a few states that have held out and not put a statutory advocate in, but we're working on those. We'll get them someday. And there's great resources in terms of training videos and other things that we put up there for the membership to help. And anybody in the public can also look at them too. We try really hard.
Well, before we go, did you want to put in another plug for this fall?
Well, we are going to have another meeting this fall, November. We'll be in New Orleans, Louisiana. In November, we always host our meeting with the National Association of Regulatory Commissioners, NARUC. So the Public Utility Commissioners, who we practice in front of, they have obviously a large association, and we partner up and co-locate with them. We have our own meeting, but we're located with them so that we have access to their panels. And we really want commissioners to come over to our meeting too. It's free for commissioners and staff, can come to any NASUCA event. And we put our consumer advocates on the NARUC panels, and it's a great opportunity to really kind of interface at the national level. So we'll be doing in New Orleans in November. And then we usually this is our mid-year meeting, which is just NASUCA only. So it's a great point for our advocates to really come together just a little more quietly and talk these issues through ourselves. So we'll have looking forward. We're going to go to cooking school. So this will be the third trip through New Orleans for NASUCA, and we go to cooking school every time. We learn to make jambalaya, and it's going to be a fun event. So it's a good time, good policy, and good fun, and good friendships, and good time.
So consumer advocates can become good chefs too. Is that the theory?
Well, you got to cook at home a lot when you're a consumer advocate. So yes, you do. So
thanks for everything you do for all NASUCA and all the members, and thanks for taking the time.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. What a great time. Great job you guys are doing with Wisconsin. So love having you guys part of the membership.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.